Hey guys, I'm here with Adapting, the jungler for Radiance, also known, I guess, King Kenneth is your nickname too. Here to talk about Phase 2, Phase 1, and some of his past seasons on his long Smite Pro League career. So starting out with Phase 2, I know recently you guys are coming off of a bit of an extra long break with the bye week due to the COVID situation in your guys' team house. How has sort of these postponed games maybe affected your planning and things like that? Did it have any effect on you guys?
Well, the postponed games themselves, I don't feel like are like super much trouble. It just makes it harder to prepare for every team, right?
Sure.
So usually you'll play up to two teams per week, but then with like the postponed games, you have to prepare for like maybe three. And generally, the way we prepare is we prepare for the first team we're playing, and then once we've played them, we prepare for the next team that's coming up.
Okay.
So we're not like actively preparing for like three teams at once. Like we're just trying to prepare for what's coming up. So I mean that just makes it like you maybe lose a bit of focus on like your later games throughout the week.
Yeah.
But I don't really feel like that's been like any reason for our struggles, though.
Sure.
Yeah.
Although, it must have been a little bit difficult coming off of sort of the long break to go through that run of losses. Are you guys sort of getting better from that? Has the mentality sort of improved from that state?
Yeah, I think it's definitely improving right now as well, and like it's getting better, and like I think it's very big that we got that win against United, especially like a 2-0. Momentum's a big thing in, I would say, any sport and esport, and like it's just like, even though you don't really think about it, it's like you maybe not feel it mentally, like something just happens when like you start losing a lot. You kind of like just slump.
Sure.
The same kind of thing happens when you start winning a lot. Like you just in like a winning mindset more, and it just makes it easier to win, even though like it doesn't maybe something you feel consciously.
Sure. Do you think having sort of this extra long time off? I know you also sort of combined the bye week into your as part of helping Benji get over COVID and things like that. The extra long time, the break, do you think that was a problem? I mean, I imagine you guys were still playing, but not being able to scrim and things like that. Did you get rusty and things like that after even like a 2-week break, do you feel like?
Definitely. Like as a team, the thing is that like maybe individually, like even individually you do lose like a bit of like sharpness, I would say, and like but as a team, the way you like think about the game and the way like that we were finally like clicking better and better, and like getting more on the same page on like how we wanted to play and what to do. And then we had like a very long break. We basically didn't scrim for like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, all other teams are practicing, playing their games like normal, and they're just improving from what they already have. And we kind of felt like we kind of got back to square one. And so we've kind of been like rebuilding in our games. Like we basically just had to take our SPL games as like practice rather than like super important to win, like just trying to get as much practice from it as possible and like try and get good for when it actually matters.
Yeah, and like you said, I imagine because you had 3 games to like make up for them, it probably felt harder to do as well in all 3 of them, because there are 3 of them to play that week.
Yeah.
You did mention that the team sort of, in your words, you went back to square one. And when I was talking with my analysts over the past couple weeks, we've sort of noticed that you guys are maybe tending towards some more comfort picks, at least early on, as soon as you were coming out of the bye-week break. I see like Aurora playing Terra, and I think you picked up Merc in a couple sets or a couple games right after the bye week and things like that. Was that something that you guys tried to do? Like say, hey, we've kind of lost some of our synergy. Maybe just like pick picks that we're all comfortable with, Was that a conscious thing, or maybe are we looking too much into it?
Well, I think, we just kind of picked we thought like, okay, like we might do well with these picks because we haven't been practicing like comps together. So let's just play what we like kind of thing, I guess. It wasn't something we actively like said in like preparation for games, like, oh, let's just do comfort picks. It's just kind of like what ended up happening in our draft. We're just kind of going to put in a position like, okay, what do we play here? And then, just defaulted to those picks, I suppose.
Sure. Do you think that was detrimental, or do you think that helped sort of stabilize the environment for your team?
I'm not really sure, like, because it didn't work out, so it's kind of hard to say whether it would have been better if we drafted differently or picked differently. But like, I don't think that was the fundamental issue either way. I just think it was the way we were like kind of playing together, playing around the map, and like using our groupings or not grouping rather properly, etc. Like, it's just our team play that was just very off.
Sure.
What to say?
Yeah. So keeping on phase 2, I know that this was a bit of a longer phase than most SPL phases or splits that we've been used to in the past. Coming into the phase, were you concerned about the length of the phase? And now that we're almost done with it, how do you think you guys as a team maybe have dealt with the long phase so far?
Well, I think the length of the phase is kind of weird, personally. Like, it's very weird to play every team 3 times.
Yeah.
And it's in some way like almost removes importance to the games, even though it doesn't, right? Like, you still want to win them, and like,
Sure.
But I don't know. It's just, it feels weird, and then like you just kind of think like, oh, like, it's fine, you have like 24 more games to play, so who cares? And then, but yeah, then we just started losing, and then like that wasn't good, obviously.
Sure. Were you concerned about maybe burning out early on in the season? Because I'm sure you guys like heard about it well before us. Was that a concern that you guys had, or that you had personally? Because
I wouldn't say it was like a direct concern. I just thought it was, I don't know, I just felt like it was odd, like to just have like such a long season, and then there's like a pretty long break before Worlds. Like, that's the like weird thing to me more than anything.
Sure. What about like the rest of the team? Do you think you guys as a team have dealt with the long phase well? Has anyone sort of had burnout as far as SPL has gone?
So we actually structured our practice to try and stop us from burning out. So like, a lot of teams would do a lot of double scrims, and we just wouldn't. We started doing them more though recently, because we kind of had to like catch up a lot and like really help get ourselves on like everyone working together again. But yeah, so like we would just have, say like we had like a double 2 games. We would then do like a 2-day break afterwards.
Sure.
Etc. And like, we wouldn't have too many double scrims, etc., just to like stop players from burning out.
Yeah.
And I guess that was like kind of working. Like, yeah.
Well, and it's kind of like especially concerning with like people who stream as well, I would imagine. If you're playing Smite on stream all the time, maybe that can contribute to some of the burnout as well.
Oh, definitely. It's like, for me, I find it tough sometimes to like, if you do a double scrim session and then like you kind of want to stream. And the thing with streaming is that you kind of have to be consistent if you want to keep up like your viewership and your growth. Because any inconsistency in that just isn't good for your stream.
Yeah, it just tanks the viewership.
Oh yeah, it does. And so like a double scrimming and then trying to stream, and then like you go into stream, you have no energy, you don't really want to be playing. So it just kind of ruins the fun, and yeah.
Do you think you've seen, and I don't think we have, but do you think you've seen maybe burnout on any other teams in the league so far? Because I feel like when players do get burnt out, inevitably it shows up in the games. Like it's kind of hard to hide those things, I find. Do you feel like that has happened?
To anyone right now?
Or maybe in the past? Because this phase has been so long as we've been talking about.
Yeah. I couldn't really pinpoint it to anyone, but like I'm sure like some players will have at some point started feeling a bit burnt. But I think soon again. I don't know. It's kind of weird because people are kind of meant to be motivated more than ever right now. Because we're going into like playoffs, all this, and prep for Worlds. But at the same time, it just feels like, I don't know, it feels like everyone's almost kind of like a little bit burnt at the same time. It's weird. It's like people are motivated, but like
exhausted at the same time.
Yeah, I don't know. I could be wrong though.
Sure. Well, I mean, of course, it's all your opinion, right?
Yeah.
So I know you mentioned that you guys are sort of getting back into the swing of things, especially with the 2-0 over United recently. Can you talk maybe a little bit about what you do? Is it just a little more scrimming, or are there like meetings and things that happen outside of scrims where you're like, hey, we want to do these things, we want to do those things? How does a team like yours sort of deal with all these losses and then sort of move on from that?
Well, we definitely had a lot of discussions, and then we talked about like what to do, but I feel like we didn't really implement what we said that we wanted to. So like we would have like a discussion on say like a Sunday, and then be like, okay, tomorrow let's practice these picks, and like let's try and play the game this way, and then maybe we'd go into the next day and like we just wouldn't really do what we said, and so we were effectively kind of just wasting our practice time, not like doing what we talked about doing and like how we think we should play the game. But I feel like more recently we're starting to actually do what we're talking about. Having had like some discussions recently on like what picks and kind of how we want to utilize those picks, and hopefully like moving forward we should be able to secure some more wins.
Sure, yeah. I like that you bring up moving forward, because I'm going to ask you a little bit maybe to look forward into Worlds and things like that. This is kind of the first time I think in your career that you're not really at the top of the table, and there are still some games to be played, for sure. But are you still feeling confident about doing well in the playoffs and getting to the big dance as it is?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, like I don't know, it's hard to explain, but I feel like usually around this time, like every team I've been on usually like starts to kind of come together more and starts playing kind of near their best. So and I feel like right now we're improving again, and if we can keep this up, then I think we'll be in a really good spot heading forwards.
Sure. I do want to maybe touch a little bit on phase 1 here, especially because this is like a brand new team for you. I don't think you've really played with any of these players before in the past, which is kind of a big shakeup for you. How did this team even get started? How did this team form, and what was your reaction maybe to even being approached and playing on this team in phase 1?
So I remember getting approached. I think it was actually like around World's time, and like Aurora wrote to me saying like he was thinking of making a new team with Cyclone, and like asked if I wanted to be a part of it. And I mean, I had a long think about it because I wasn't sure if I wanted to play this year or not. And then I had a different couple of offers, but this one just seemed the most lucrative to me because I was curious. Like more than anything, I was just curious how it would be to play with like Cyclone and Aurora, who would have pretty different playstyles to what I was used to.
Yeah.
And yeah, from there, like we kind of like together discussed a bit like solo lane options and then mid lane options, and I said I really wanted to play with big man, so we ended up picking him up, and then we got Benji for solo.
Sure, yeah. I remember, I think in the summer of last year, I was able to hang out with Aurora a little bit because he was in LA to watch his brother play for Golden Guardians, and he was talking about even bringing Benji onto that Splice squad. I think this is like 2019 summer, so this would be, they were having some problems on Splice at that time as well. So I think, Aurora is a big Benji fan anyway, so that might have been how that got worked out.
Yeah. No, definitely.
So, like, speaking of this new team, how has it been maybe meshing with them? Like you said, these are players who have pretty different play styles than what you're used to. And at least early on in phase one, it kind of looked like you were just, trying to be the best at individually, and that was able to carry you to wins. Is that how you guys felt it, or were there specific comps and team fight things that you were trying to do early on?
I do feel like we were just kind of doing like individual things, and it was kind of just working out.
Mm-hmm.
And then like we kind of just slumped as well in phase one. We lost to Ghost, and then we're like, okay, like we need to like completely rethink the way we're playing, and like start kind of choosing like different picks and like using them better as a team. And then like we just weren't pulling it off well, and we weren't playing that well as a team. And it was pretty like difficult because like of a transition. Because going from EU to playing with NA players, like I've played with EU players my entire career, and most EU players are fairly passive when it comes to like fighting. In EU, we'll generally only see like fights are on like objectives and like maybe sometimes buffs, but like I mean you can consider them objective, right? But like a weaker team in EU would generally just try and avoid fighting and scale to late game. Whereas the stronger team would like maybe just try and like capitalize on some farm, but never really build a big enough lead. Whereas in NA, it's kind of like a brawl fest. Like people just like to fight all the time over nothing.
Yeah.
But it's also like a good thing with the way they like apply pressure on the map then instead. And like constantly applying kill pressure to everyone, so like you're not really safe wherever you go. And then like so like I had to try and transition that playstyle, me and Big Man. And for us it's pretty like hard because like our habits as EU players would be like, okay, farms up on our side of the map, and there's nothing obvious to like look for right now. Let's just fall back into our farm. And then like maybe Aurora at the same time would like be playing up, looking to make a play, and like going in, and then he'd go in and die alone.
Sure.
While we're all farming.
Yeah.
And like I feel like that's something that would happen a lot to us, and just trying to like get synergy with our work for us has been like difficult, I would say, but I'd say something we're getting better and better at.
Sure. I'm going to bring up the super team moniker here because, according to sort of the community, I will say, maybe just like the general feeling, you've basically been on what most people would consider maybe the past two super teams. And I know maybe Radiance doesn't feel like as much of a super team right now or even this year as PK did last year. But, is that something that has ever affected you? Like, do you feel pressure when the casters are like, oh, this is a super team, we expect them to do good? Or is there more internal pressure that comes from you than sort of from these external sources?
I mean, I feel like I maybe if anything, like there's some more confidence to me. Like when people are like talking good about you, and they like expect good things for you, I feel like that's a good thing to me.
Sure.
Like I think it gives you a bit of confidence, if anything. But like in terms of super team, like obviously like very good rosters and everything, but that's the biggest thing, right? That like a super team just has to be working together well, and like that's the what was that?
I think your cam disappeared here.
I'm back.
Yeah, you're back. Perfect.
But I mean, I don't know like what to say about it.
Sure.
Honest.
Well, I mean, basically that means that you don't really care too much about other people calling your team super teams.
Yeah.
Sure. I do want to talk a little bit about the Phase 1 playoffs, because it was a little bit, I think, unexpected for you guys to make it all the way to the finals. And you did bring out something that I don't think anyone expected, which was a Dodgy. Where did the Dodgy pick in the playoffs especially come from? Was that something you had been workshopping in scrims and things like that before? And why Dodgy so suddenly?
I just knew it was good. Like I've kind of done that a lot of times.
Sure.
Where like I won't actively play some picks because I think some of them are so good that like, you know, if you stop playing them, they're gonna become meta or whatever, and like people are gonna remember how to play against them more than anything, maybe, or like what picks are good into them. So I was just kind of holding that pick, and then around that time I was like, all right, it's time to bring it out and like see if it's actually good.
Do you mind me asking maybe like how long you were holding it for? Because I really think, and I talked to other teams about this, like Neil especially was very surprised by it, and it took them, like, really caught them off guard. When did you sort of decide, hey, Daddy's a pick that I'm going to sort of leave in the tank?
I played it in like a scrim or a ranked game like pretty early on. And I remember just thinking like, this is stupid, like how am I able to like do this? Like it's so easy to play, and like I was just kind of like one-shotting everything. And then I just kind of didn't keep playing it because I was like, you know, this would be a good pocket pick if no one like starts playing it.
Yeah.
And turns out it was, yeah.
Sure. Do you think that happens a lot for like other players in other roles where, you know, maybe they're playing on stream or, you know, just casually or in a scrim and they just accidentally pick a pick, or maybe not even accidentally, just pick one for no particular reason and it ends up doing pretty well? Does that happen often, you think?
Yeah, I think that happens. I mean, I don't know how often it happens, but like that's how like new characters come into the meta. Is like someone just maybe randomly picks something that hasn't been picked recently, and then people just remember, oh, this character is actually good. Kind of like if you look at Hebo right now, like Paul, I would say, has probably been on actively playing it all the time. Like throughout like his career, he's been playing Hebo a lot.
Yeah.
But like no one else really like been picking it up.
Sure.
There was a period last year where people started playing it. But then like people just randomly stopped again, and now this year same thing. Like some teams really value it, and like I feel like those kind of picks like just kind of come out of nowhere because people are like, oh, let's just play this again. Like raging kind of happens with a lot. Like around Worlds time, no one's playing him.
Yeah.
In scrims, no one's playing him SPL, and then Worlds happens, everyone's playing Radiant. Radiant's like the best mage in the game.
Sure.
So.
All right, keeping up on the Phase 1 playoffs, this was sort of the first time we saw this choosing dynamic ever happen. Is that something that you enjoyed, or do you want to see that in other LAN environments as we keep going? What were your thoughts on the top seed being able to choose their opponent?
I mean, I guess it's nice, right? Like as a top seed, especially if you know there's someone you have like a poor matchup into. Like for Ghost, I think that but who could I choose between SSG and?
I think it was
Sanguine, right?
I think Sanguine was the one who was choosing between.
Oh, Sanguine was the one choosing between Ghost and
you guys.
Oh, and us.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what it was. Yeah. And they just chose us, right? Because like, well, obviously they probably just thought we were worse.
Yeah, at least coming into the tournament, you guys have been so great.
And they maybe thought that like they matched up worse against Ghost.
Sure.
Well, both. That's the same thing, really, kind of.
Yeah.
Against them. I mean, I think it's nice, but like at the end of the day, like, sure, there are teams that like some teams struggle more against because their playstyles kind of like clash, and you know. So that's just what like you've had like these triangles in the past. Where like in EU, where like we beat Dig beats what would they call rival, and rival would beat us, kind of thing.
Sure.
But other than that, I don't know. I feel like when you go into a tournament, you shouldn't really care who you're up against. Like I feel like every Worlds, the best team has always won, pretty much. Like the teams with the hard brackets, like when we won in like season 2, we had a real hard bracket. I think season 3 might have been as well. Season 4 there was like one of the harder brackets. Like
sure.
And when SK won, they had like they had like a mega stacked bracket.
Yeah, definitely.
They literally like couldn't have had a more stacked brackets. And so like if you're the best team, you're gonna beat everyone else anyway. So you shouldn't really care.
Yeah. That makes sense.
That's the thing with seeding as well. Like seeding for a LAN, like it's nice. It's nice maybe if you get to like secure going into semis or like quarters. But at the end of the day, if you're there to win, like you shouldn't really care who you're up against. Like you should just be ready to. I mean, you should be prepared to win against everything.
Sure. All right, maybe moving on to your past seasons here, looking on your career as a whole. We talked a little bit about, the super team and things like that, but I kind of just wanted to get your perspective on the whole PK experience last year. It seems like a lot of things going well for most of the season, and then there was a big sort of a big break in the team. What's your perspective and insight on that?
So, well, to begin with, in that team, it was kind of like the same thing with like playstyle clashes. It was like a playstyle clash between like me, Nils, Zeros, and then like the way Vote and Deathwalker were used to playing was kind of different to us. In a way, yeah, Zeros was used to playing was different to me and Nils, etc. So like, we were working on that for a long time, but like we were still doing all right in SPL. And then we played at MSI, and we actually had a pretty good game one against what they called back then Renegades.
I think Renegades, yeah.
Current SSG.
Yeah.
We had a pretty good game one, and we actually kind of ended up throwing. I think that game crashed on stream. But we threw at FG, and we lost that game, and then obviously we lost the series after that. And then like we had a discussion, and we talked about like doing role swaps because Hunter mid was like very strong, and mages in duo were very strong.
Sure.
So we're like, like the natural thing, maybe we just try putting Cyros in duo lane and put Vote in mid and see how that goes. And so that's what we did coming back, and it just wasn't really working. Because even though like maybe like Cyros knew how to like play like the lane matchup, like he didn't really understand how to play the actual like utilize the pressure as well as Vote in duo and like all that stuff. And then for mid, Vote was like good at fighting with us, but he also like sometimes in mid laners you need someone who can like say no at times. Because say like you're trying to fight, but then the mid laner needs to say no, like we need to get this farm like before because otherwise they're gonna fall behind or something like that, But like it clashed, and then we talked about it, and then we said that we should just go back to having Vote in duo and Cyros in mid, and then that like caused like friction in the team. Because Cyros wanted to stay in duo lane because he felt like he was getting so much farm and then he was winning his lane matchups. But it just wasn't translating into like wins either way, like whatever we were doing. So then we tried swapping that around back again, and then I don't know, we never really like fully recovered and like got on like a good page again.
Yeah.
And then the team just kind of hit a breaking point where unfortunately we had to replace Cyros and get Ro in.
Sure.
Which was like a pretty shitty situation. And like in hindsight, I wish that like if we were gonna do anything, we should have just done it before phase 2 started. Instead of like realizing that,
in the middle.
Nothing's gonna
Yeah. I wanted to talk a little bit about the back-to-back championships that you guys won, since you're one of the only people to have won back-to-back championships, and I think quite a few of your teammates are no longer in the league except for Raffer. I think it's only you two left. So what was that experience like? Especially, it must have been crazy to like come to America and like win these championships and then to do it all again the next year.
Yeah.
How was that feeling, while you're doing it? And maybe like now that you're a couple years removed, have you been able to reflect on that? Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, like more than anything, I'm just thankful for it, right?
Sure.
Like I'm so thankful that I was lucky enough to be put in the team I was. Like I can't believe how much I enjoyed playing with my old team. But like winning it was just a dream come true, right? Like my dream to begin with wasn't even to win Worlds.
Yeah.
My dream was to make a LAN. That's what I wanted.
Sure.
That's all. Like, if I made a LAN, we made the fall split LAN, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we ended up coming second. But like, that was like my biggest dream. Was just like, okay, I made a LAN, and then like from there, like obviously like I always wanted to win Worlds, right? But that wasn't like something I was like maybe that's not realistic, you know. But like making a LAN should be.
Yeah.
And then we ended up winning it somehow.
Yeah.
And that was like the craziest experience ever. Like I still am so happy for it, and like looking back at it, like it brings back so many like I get like goosebumps thinking about it.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved it, and I can't believe that we managed to do it twice. I think I don't know how we managed to do it twice, like as a team, because we were just enjoying season 3. We were just enjoying the year. I felt like we didn't take it that seriously. We weren't like mega tryharding at all times, you know. We're just kind of going into lands and like having fun with it and being like, you know, we're gonna try our best, but like whatever happens.
Yeah.
And we just kind of ended up winning every land that year as well.
Yeah, it was a pretty crazy run, I think, for you guys, especially after winning that first Worlds. I don't think you guys lost a LAN until you guys broke up.
Yeah, no. And well, yeah, no, I don't know. We're going into season 3 Worlds, which was like the sketchiest LAN I feel like we got into, because the meta was so wild.
Yeah.
You didn't really know what was going on. It was all about like if someone got a good enough like early game like start, they kind of just won the game. So that was like a pretty like nerve-wracking Worlds in a way, because like you were so nervous during like the drafting stage and like what was gonna happen early game. But I mean, I don't know, we won again, and like it kind of just felt unrealistic. Like it took a while to like even understand like we won again. But yeah, no, it was a great time, and that's all I can say about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, having been one of the only people to have done it, what are maybe some things you learned from that run? Is there anything that you took away from that you use today, or you know, now to like maybe teach your teammates things, or are there things that you've been able to take from that experience to help you where you are now?
Yeah, definitely. There are some things. I think something that's like kind of important as well is like to remember to enjoy it, and I feel like that's what we kind of did right. Like I feel like it's weird that we won as much just enjoying it, but like that was also like one of the reasons we were doing well, because we were like, let's just have fun with it, you know. And like, and then if we win, we win, and like if you can do that, then yeah, that's great.
Sure.
So like before lands, maybe like the biggest thing for me is just try and relax and not get too focused on it, and just think about like okay, this game's coming up right now. Like, how am I gonna do? What am I gonna play? What are they gonna play? Like, you know, just enjoy yourself the days before.
Sure.
Get in a relaxed mindset, and then when it's time to play, it's time to play.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, there's things we did as a team, and like, but I feel like that's nothing I've been able to like really reapply on the other teams I've been on. So I think that was like a unique thing that we had probably.
Yeah, I know. Raph has told some stories of him and Email having a lot of fun trolling you on certain occasions. Was that part of the fun as well?
I don't know. I would like. It was definitely fun, but like sometimes I could get so angry at them when they were trolling me. But like it was always like, you know, love in a way, you know, like, and like it's just banter.
Sure.
And it was funny, and like I'm someone that like people like to, you know, maybe like aggravate, because you will get a reaction from me.
Of course.
So I mean, yeah, it was fun. Like we had a lot of fun.
Sure. All right, so I've been asking this question of basically every pro player I've had the pleasure of interviewing, and that is, who are some mentors that you've had on your SPL journey? Doesn't necessarily have to be even in Smite, but you know, if you had any Smite mentors or people that helped you along the way, you know, who have those people been?
Ooh, that's a I think that's a tough question. Smite mentors.
I mean, you can say you didn't really have any. Like Harry said, he didn't really have any mentors.
I wouldn't really say I had any from Smite. I just for me, I just looked at like the people I looked up to in like other sports and stuff, and how they looked at things, and kind of just took that as like my dedication or like motivation and like to do things. Like how in how you also in like other sports, like other people like watch a lot of tape, of like what other people are doing and like study their enemies and stuff like that. And that's something that I would do a lot, especially back then. Like I used to just watch like a bunch of streams of like other junglers just to see what they were doing or how they were playing, and like if there's anything I saw that like I should try and like simulate. And same for like teams, like watch what they're doing and how they're playing and like how I can apply that to my team.
Yeah. All right, so no mentors for adapting, but I'm sure there are some people you would have considered like your rivals and things like that over the years. Who are some of like the main rivals that you feel like you've had in Smite Pro League? And it doesn't necessarily have to be other junglers, but just like other players that you've played against.
Well, the obvious rival I had for like season 2, I was always been a big fan of Annister, so like he was someone I looked up to, and like I really wanted to like beat him, cause
Sure.
I mean, like if I beat him, then I'm the best.
Yeah.
And then after that, like I had like a kind of rivalry with like Cuba, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, it doesn't have to be a role, but like I would say that's the ones I would mainly like think about. Like Cuba Fred was like also a battle on like who's gonna be the best in EU.
Yeah.
And I felt like, if I kept beating Cuba, then I was still the best, and like I wanted to always try and do that.
Sure.
And then like you come into like the international dance, but I never really like, other than Andy said, I never really like looked at like any like NA player as too much of a rival. Yeah, I mean,
sure.
I'll say that. And then like it was a lot of people like I respected and like I thought were good, but
okay.
Like Twig for a while when he was jungling was someone else also like at least like I think it was like during season 2 or 3 or something like that, where I thought he was really good.
Sure.
I mean, he always has been, but
yeah. You talked a little bit earlier about sort of adapting to that NA style. Do you feel like more teams have started pushing that just because there's more sort of exposure to that NA style now? Whereas in like EU, there was maybe like a bit of a bubble of like for like where that EU style could have grown up independently. Like especially after season 6 when everyone merged in together.
Yeah, no, there was definitely a merge in like the playstyle because, well, it basically just became the NA playstyle because the majority of the players were NA, right?
Yeah.
And so the teams that still kind of had an EU playstyle was us then back then in season 6, PK and Renegades were like, we weren't really playing to like brawl all the time and fight all the time, but like we were still, playing the map well enough that like even if they were looking to fight, like you would get your form and then you would just kind of take fights when you thought you were stronger, and that was kind of like working out, I guess.
Sure.
But now I think most teams have definitely started getting more and more on the like NA playstyle with like aggression and fighting. But like Sanguine also, I feel like they're a team that has like a fairly passive playstyle, and they make it work. But yeah, I think it's just what teams are kind of used to, and like what the majority of your team will play is kind of the playstyle you start adopting.
Sure. And I guess because the regions aren't separate, it's like hard to see if there are distinct differences between the ways teams play, right? If you're all in the same league.
Yeah.
Right, because it doesn't really feel like Space Station are like, like of course they're always going to play for like the mid-late game because that's sort of the players that they have. But I still feel like they're aggressive when they can be in the early game. Like they don't shy away from that anyway.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, but I just feel like they don't like they'll be like looking for form a lot, etc. But they're not really like. I don't feel like they'll get like as many kills as like Ghost will, you know.
Sure.
Like Ghost are teams that like just actively like just looking to kill people and
Yeah.
like but SSG does it in their own way that they do it really well.
Yeah, yeah. All right, Adapting. I think I'm all out of questions here. So we've come to the time in the interview where I'm asking who you trying to call out, who you got beef with, you know, and finally, you have any shout outs? And, you know, also if there's, you know, anything you feel that's like wrong with the game or, you know, something that you need to bring to light, you know, the floor is yours. It's time for your soapbox.
Right. So for shout out or like call outs, I actually don't really have any call outs, to be honest. That's kind of boring to say. But like the Smite Pro League is kind of like boring like that. I think there's not too many. There's not too much.
Now's the time. All right, who's pissing you off in scrims?
Nah. But I mean, like most people are just friendly with each other
Sure.
within the league. Like it's a pretty friendly league. And for the game, I don't know, like just keep the lanes away from the jungle more. Like I something I do wonder. Like I'm not sure. Maybe it would be more boring, but I feel like it would be fun if laning phase had more emphasis on it. Because I feel like laning right now doesn't really exist too much. Like yeah, okay, you have it a bit in duo and solo, but like mid lane, for example, like they have no laning phase at all.
Yeah, it lasts like
they
one wave.
Clear
basically.
one wave.
Yep.
They clear one wave before at least another person is in mid for the entirety of the game, pretty much.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of lame.
Sure.
And I wish, like, I think you can change that by making like the lane creeps tankier, the jungle creeps also tankier, and like maybe also further separated from the lanes. And just make it so that like sharing maybe isn't necessarily efficient, because right now you still gain XP out of sharing. Out of thin air. You're creating XP.
Yeah.
Essentially. So I wonder how the game would be like if also like I think pushing like early towers is a bit undervalued, because it's almost like detrimental to your team if you push your tower. Is that what I'm looking for?
Yeah.
Where like if you push a tower too early, unless it's the mid tower, people can just zone you so far back, and then you just become like a vulnerable target.
Sure.
Because you have to step up.
Yeah.
And you don't get enough gold to really like reward you for getting that tower. But that's what I would say like about the game.
Sure.
For now.
What about shoutouts? I know we skipped over the callouts and stuff, but what about shoutouts? Who you got to shout out?
I mean, I'm just gonna shout out to everyone watching this podcast. So shout out to you. I mean, podcast like interview. Shout out to all Smite fans, everyone watching, you know, from home, my family. You know, my parents watch a lot and cheer. My fiance, of course.
Sure.
And yeah, just that's it, I guess.
All right, man. Thanks a lot for joining me on this interview. I really appreciate it. I think we had a great talk. We touched on a lot of issues, and good luck for your team and everyone on the squad in the rest of the season. I hope to see you guys at Worlds.
Thank you very much.